Hi, I'm Roberta. Welcome to my kitchen. We're going to make chicken stock. Now, if you've cooked with me for a while, we have made European style chicken stock before. Today, we're making Asian style chicken stock. The difference is mainly in the seasonings. Stocks were traditionally a way of using up all the bits and pieces. So we're going to put in some ginger, some offcuts of ginger from drying our ginger, a brown onion, some garlic, some green onions and coriander. Now the Thais are frugal people among other things, and they waste no part of the coriander plant. The roots, as you'll see, we're going to use in our pastes. The leaves of course go into some garnishes, and we're just going to throw into our stock a handful of coriander stems so that they don't go to waste. Now the other big difference with an Asian stock and a European stock is there's a bit of a double boiling method. When you make European stock, you're often told to skim off the foam that floats to the top, some of the impurities. We get around that with an Asian stock by blanching these bones in cold water, refreshing them, and then putting them back into the pan with all of our aromats. And that helps us get a lovely clear stock that should need either no skimming or very little skimming. Now you can use chicken wings, you can use chicken necks, chicken frames, whatever you've got. You could use a whole chicken if you wanted to. I like wings because when you've finished, even though most recipes say discard the solids, I actually pick the meat off the chicken wings, mix them with some mayo and use that as a sandwich filling. Now chicken is one of those proteins that I think you need to be careful with. It will come with a use by date on it, but I highly recommend that you make your stock as soon as possible after getting your chicken wings, necks, carcasses, whatever. They do sometimes have a little bit of a funny smell when you first open the packet when they've been vac packed, and that's actually to do with the gas that's used when they're packaging. It doesn't mean they're off, but obviously your nose knows, so you be the guardian of your own kitchen. Now we give these chicken wings a bit of a wash to remove any impurities, pop them in a saucepan, bring them to the boil, and then strain them and refresh them. Let's get that part done. While they're on the stove, we can get everything else ready. So while our chicken's coming to the boil, let's get everything else ready. It's pretty straightforward. We're just going to peel and quarter our onion and halve our garlic. Look, if it's a big onion, you might want to cut it into eighths. Quarters are fine. We want it to be able to be easily removed. Garlic, literally in half like that. If there's any excess skin, you can get rid of it, but we're not peeling it. We're just throwing that whole head in. I might quarter it. There we go. We'll get more flavour through it that way. And our ginger, just a rough chop. It can just be a few slices. We just want it to perfume our stock. The Thais tend to use a lot of ginger, sometimes galangal, with poultry or with seafood because that ginger smell seems to clean up the other aromas. Our green onions, we'll get rid of the root end. This is a time to use ones maybe that you think are slightly past their best. That's what goes into stock. All the bits and pieces that would otherwise be wasted, because in traditional kitchens we don't waste anything. Anything that's slimy, really past its prime, doesn't need to go in, but everything else is going into that pot. Our coriander roots can just have a cut in half, and we'll see how our chicken's doing. So as soon as these came to the boil, I just drained them, rinsed them in some cold water, and gave the pot a good scrub, because most of that foam that we normally skim off was around the edge. So now back into the clean pot, good pinch of salt, in with those ingredients that we chopped up earlier, and this time a measured amount of water. How much water we use for the first cooking doesn't matter because we're tipping it out. Now we follow the recipe because we want the flavour to be right and we want our yield of stock to be right. Now, if the water isn't enough to just cover everything, and this is, then you can just add a little bit more. You do need to make sure everything's covered. We're going to pop that on the stove, bring it just to the boil. As soon as it boils, turn it down to as low as possible, pop the lid on, not entirely, but just about like that, so a little bit of steam can escape, but we're not going to lose too much to evaporation. And then we just leave it to itself for a couple of hours. So after a couple of hours of gentle simmering, here we have our beautiful chicken stock. No need for skimming because of that double blanching that we did. And I'm just going to strain it through here. We'll catch all the solids, but as I said, as far as I'm concerned, if you want to pick the meat off those chicken wings and mix it with some mayo or whatever to make sandwiches, I think it's delicious. And we're just going to set that aside to cool, and then we'll be able to pop it in the fridge or the freezer so that we have it on hand when we're ready to go.